Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's Wednesday, July the 13th, and it is the start of NHL free agency. And of course, this is FPC Radio Live. I'm your host, Ian Glendon, joined, as always, by my paisan up in the Northeast, Mr. John Sapichetti. John, good morning. How are you doing today? Have you had enough coffee? Have you woken up? Have you gotten your Gallinari jersey yet?
I'm working on that. The Gallinari jersey is on order for the Celtics, and also Paolo Banchero, who was the first pick in the draft, going to Orlando, and he was so good in his first two games in the rookie league that they said, you've already proved you're good enough. You don't have to play anymore. So we Italians are taking over the NBA slowly but surely.
Right. I will hold my breath for that to happen. Like if you're a Celtics fan, obviously you're excited. For what's happened so far this offseason. I think they've made some pretty good moves, considering, it really just hasn't been too much movement yet this offseason. But as I mentioned at the top of the show, today is the start of NHL free agency. And if you've been paying attention to Full Press Hockey or Full Press NHL on Twitter, you've realized that there have been moves made already. Anyone out there in Bruins land knows that there are a couple impending moves that have yet to be announced, but I think we can all expect. We're going to talk about that here in about 10 minutes or so with, someone we like to refer to as the voice of Full Press Hockey. Mr. Jim Behringer is going to join us, and we're going to kind of dive into what this day is going to be, because I have a feeling, John, it's going to be a very eventful day in the National Hockey League. Very exciting because, we talk about NBA offseason. The NHL for hockey fans usually has a pretty exciting offseason, at least at the very start of free agency. It's a very much like the NBA and even in the NFL. There's a lot of buildup and a lot of action early on, and obviously that grabs the excitement of fans, viewers, journalists, whoever's involved in the league, because there's going to be a lot of news, and we know that Kevin Weeks is going to be a pretty busy guy no matter where he is over the next couple of days, and we're going to get to see some breaking news videos from him. So I'm excited for today, John. I'm excited. I have plenty of coffee on tap for the afternoon.
You're going to need it, yeah, because oftentimes these signings will come pretty quickly and they'll be pretty substantial.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA, not so much this year, because there really weren't as many big-name players that were available. It was more about extensions and also what's going to happen with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. So those were the big question marks, and they still haven't been answered in the NBA with Durant and Irving. And there's the possibility that those two guys go back to Brooklyn next year. But who's the big name free agent out there that everybody's waiting to see what their decision's going to be?
Probably Johnny Gaudreau. I mean, he announced, or they announced yesterday that Calgary tried to offer him $10 million a year. He's just looking to just test the market, and he's gonna get a pretty nice pay. The Flyers and the Devils are probably the two teams that to keep an eye on for him. Evgeny Malkin was going to be kind of a big name, more so for his name, not necessarily because of the he's not the same guy he was 10 years ago, but he ended up overnight re-signing with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So his dipping his toe into free agency. It was he got about to the edge of his big toe nail, and he was like, "Nah, I'm good. It's too cold. it's too cold to water. I'm good. I'll stay on the deck." But no, like I said, it's going to be exciting. We've already had some players re-sign. Again, we've already got rumblings because we kind of, just like in the NFL, you have like I don't know. There's a period of, like, some of these deals that are getting broke. Obviously it's not the start of free agency yet, so there's kind of how can you say there's no tampering, quote unquote, involved? But again, at the end of the day, it makes for a very exciting coverage. Before we get to that, though, I don't want to get too deep into that because we do have Jim coming on. I do want to mention that, mercifully, John, the N'Keal Harry era in New England is finally over. The former first-round pick got traded yesterday to the Chicago Bears for a 2024 seventh-round pick, and I hope this ends all discussion about N'Keal Harry. I'm so tired of hearing about N'Keal Harry and how Belichick can't draft receivers. We get it. He didn't work out. It is what it is. We've moved on. And by we, I mean I'm speaking as if I'm Patriots management right now. And look, they were able to get something for nothing, essentially. Seventh round pick, for any other team, I'd say meh, but it's the Patriots, so who knows what they can do with that seventh round pick.
Yeah, they'll probably move it a few times, right? Turn it into a future seventh round pick, and then
they'd be
another
really good at
seventh round pick.
washing money, if need
Oh,
be. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Like trying to
Yeah.
get, you know, you watch all these shows and movies and stuff like that, and they're like washing money, like switching, moving money through different shell corporate. That's kind of what the Patriots do with draft picks. So yeah, you know what? I would guarantee you, I would bet that they're going to move that a few times.
Yeah, get multiple sevenths or a seventh the following year, and we'll all be dead by the time they use it. Yeah, I mean the pick they got for Garoppolo turned into like all different sorts of things. They got the second round pick from San Francisco and turned it into all sorts of things. So yeah, they're really good at that. That's a great point, Ian, that they would be the perfect corporation at running a shell game that no one could quite figure out. But yeah, I mean it just never worked for N'Keal Harry. Now he goes to Chicago, see if he can connect with Justin Fields, and you go from there. And I think they've addressed the problem in free agency the last few years. Kendrick Bourne, I thought, was a home run last year. That was a really good signing. We'll see what Nelson Aguilar is going to be like this year. I think he disappointed last year. Maybe a second year with Mac Jones and with the system and with the organization will be better for him. There, Jacoby Myers, a nice wide receiver. So, you try to cobble together 4 or 5 really good, competent wide receivers to give Mac Jones the ample weapons. And then you did spend a lot of money at tight end.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Hunter Henry was good last year. Jonnu Smith, not so much, but we'll see if he improves in his second year with the Patriots.
Yeah, and look, I mean, there was a lot of speculation or a lot of thought to why did Jonnu Smith struggle. Well, I think there's been talk about how he was used. And look, I mean, we've seen the Patriots. We bring it up. We've brought it up several times. Admit when they've done things the wrong way, and Patrick Chung's first go around with the Patriots comes to mind because they realized, and Belichick has said this, that we used him wrong, and that was part of the reason why he struggled. And I think maybe Jonnu Smith was used not in the way that maximized his value, and maybe you're going to get that in year two. And look, I mean, we talk every time we talk about the Patriots, we know that it all hinges on Mac Jones's development. I think you have a nice collection of weapons for him. Devontae Parker was added to the mix in the offseason. And, a nice stable of running backs. I think James White's return is flying a little under the radar, but I think he's going to be a very, very nice piece to have and surround Mac Jones with. And then you add in, again, the group of wide receivers, which I think is again, we're not talking like, the top wide receiver group in the league, but, for a 1 through 4, 1 through 5 group, they're pretty solid across the board. Now, again, that might end up being a collection of 2s and 3s when it comes to, I'm using quotation marks for those just listening, but wide receiver 2 and 3, and I'm kind of saying it a little bit tongue in cheek because I think far too often we've meshed in together fantasy football and real football, and it just makes for awful commentary on this. But like when it comes to tier levels of receiver, obviously there's your go-to guy, no matter what triple coverage you're going to throw to him. Devontae Adams. Sorry, I that just popped into my head as I was talking about it. But what I'm talking about is guys that are going to be pretty good receivers. Maybe you're going to break 1,000 yards, that type of thing. 60 receptions, that type of range. 7 to 9 touchdowns. They have a lot of those guys, and I think depth across the board. They have a lot of guys that can make plays, and then you add in tight ends and running backs. And I think if Mac Jones is the guy that I think he is, and what I think he is a pretty smart guy and someone who's quick to make decisions and the right decisions, I think he's going to flourish in a system that is going to allow him to throw to a lot of different guys.
Yeah, I mean, a lot depends on Aguilar and Devontae Parker, how far they progress here in Aguilar's second year with the Patriots, and Parker, who 3 years ago had a Pro Bowl caliber season with the Miami Dolphins. Again, Kendrick Bourne to me is their best wide receiver, and he really proved it, especially late in the season and in the playoff loss to Buffalo. And then you got Jacoby Myers, who's just a real steady guy. They've drafted some pieces as well, so they have some quality depth there, which is a nice thing to have. And I think the offensive line, I think, will come together pretty deep at running back and at tight end as well. So I have more confidence in their offense at this point than their defense. I think their defense is still going to be evolving. Not crazy about their defense because I don't think it's fast enough. And I think that that's an important part of what you need in the NFL. But I think their offense has the potential to be, good or real good.
Yeah, and look, I mean, personally, me, especially in this era, I mean, I think offense is more important. I mean, obviously, you need solid unit on both sides of the ball. I mean, you can't have the league's worst defense and expect to do too much unless you're Tom Brady and it's 2011 and you bring that Patriots defense to the Super Bowl. But I'm getting off track here. I'm not going to talk about Tom Brady today, except for the last couple mentions of him in the last 30 seconds. So to me, like, again, as much as like I agree with you that Nelson Aguilar, you want to see him kind of, elevate his game a little bit. You want to see what kind of Devontae Parker. Again, at the end of the day, I think it's more about Mac Jones. Those guys Nelson Aguilar could be the same guy he was last year, and Devontae Parker could maybe not quite reach that potential of Pro Bowl receiver like we saw a few years ago, but be kind of the same guy that he has been. And they could still be fine, because if Mac Jones takes that next step, then you're talking about, that's that to me, again, that's just the biggest factor in all this. And then you look at the defense and see how they're going to evolve. But look, I mean, I got to trust that they're going to put together a competent enough team. We're seeing there's something about the last 5 to 10 years, and I know a lot of the focus has been about second round cornerbacks and first round wide receivers and all that, but is there any better team than at drafting late round defensive backs or undrafted defensive backs than the Patriots?
Yeah, I mean, with J.C. Jackson was a 7th round pick, and Malcolm Butler was an undrafted free agent, and those two guys really performed
Kyle
well.
Duggar.
Yeah, Kyle Duggar.
I mean, Kyle Duggar very quickly is going to be one of the best safety. I mean, he's already on the cusp of being one of the better safeties in the league, and this was a guy that got mocked because, well, I mean, the team got mocked by, quote unquote experts talking about, oh, who's this Division III guy? Well, guess what? I think the Patriots are pretty good at that. And, if anything, they're very good at finding those hidden gems, especially defensively. So to me, I got to have faith that they're going to put together a pretty solid defensive team. And to your point, I think this offense is going to be pretty darn good. So I thought, look, this team might surprise some people. Again, it all depends on Mac Jones, though. It really does. I mean,
yeah,
we could say all this, but if Mac Jones doesn't take a step forward, or God forbid, he takes a step back, then this team is going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, if you could get a 10% improvement from last year, that's a good step in the right direction. And again, that will influence how the offense plays. I think the offensive line, that's always a key here, because I thought he took a lot of hits early in the season. It got better late for a while. Then it kind of reverted back to him taking a lot of hits late. Defensively, look, the last 2 times they played the Buffalo Bills didn't even punt. So, that is an issue, and that's a team that you're going to have to figure out a way to beat to try to get back as the co-favorite in the division. I think Buffalo's clearly the favorite in the division. But, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a total evolution on that defense. I'm high on the safeties. I think that the big question mark last year was they really had an inability to stop the run, and that's something that they're going to have to address. And normally you don't think of that as being a huge thing, because, you worry about trying to contain elite passers, but, you can't get off the field. That's a problem.
Yeah, again, I mean, that's certainly something that they want to address. And and look, I mean, part of that too is offensively. If they become more efficient on offense, they convert better offensively, then teams are going to be less likely to try to, run down their throat. Because look, I mean, teams are going to, obviously, if they have the talent to do so, and they notice a weakness in the Patriots defense, they're going to do that. But even if that was the case in years past with Brady at quarterback, you're not going to sit there and try to win a game rushing down the throats of the
Hmm.
Patriots, regardless of how good their or how bad their or rush defense was, because you knew eventually that was going to come back to bite you in the ass, because no matter what you did, you can score a lot quickly and a lot more efficiently when you have an elite
Hmm.
quarterback. So if the Patriots improve and become more efficient on offense, making more consistently, making those conversions more consistently, not putting themselves in second and third and long situations, then all of a sudden that offense is going to help that defense. And this is what I always talk about when certainly when we're arguing, not us, but I'm discussing in a very adult manner most of the times with people on Twitter about why, for a majority of the Patriots run with Brady at quarterback, the Patriots defense was pretty good points per game, but often bottom half, bottom third in yards per game, and also in DVOA, which obviously encompasses as a pretty broad spectrum of defensive metrics, and people would constantly call those defenses elite. And I'm like, look, they're good at not letting teams score. Which I mean, when it comes to playing defense, when you get teams down close to the end zone, that it makes defense a little bit easier. I mean, it
Hmm.
shrinks the field, it keeps things a little bit more in front of you. Um, but nonetheless, to keep teams out of the end zone consistently, there is some obviously there's some ability there, but that team certainly in that 2010 stretch, um, they were more successful based on their offense, and the offense efficiency and lack of turnovers and just ability to put up points no matter what helped that defense. So like those Patriots teams, you remember, John, they used to struggle a lot giving up third and longs, or they'd have inconsistent play, but they were still going 13-3, 12-4, because, well, guess what? You had Tom Brady and the Patriots offense on the other side of the field. So that negated a lot of their struggles. Can Mac Jones become that type of uh, 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 I wish I had a more scientific word for stopping and you know what I mean? Like I feel like I'd come off far more intelligent if I had a little bit deeper
Cheat code?
vocabulary.
How,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
about cheat
yeah.
code?
No, I hate using the word cheat code. I
You
hate
don't
it.
like that?
No, I
Okay,
think
well
I
we'll work
think
on something.
it's like, it's kind of like it's so overused now. It's like, oh, he's a cheat code. No, he's not. That's just a spin move. Come on, guys. Like athleticism wasn't like born in the last 10 years. Like, people have had athleticism. We don't have to call every good player a cheat code. No, he's a
Well,
really good
not
player.
not every good player, but every
No,
the guys that make a huge
you know what
difference.
I mean. You know what
Yeah.
I mean. Like, it's just like GOAT, or Hall of Fame. This is a Hall of Fame player. No, he's not. What are we
Well,
talking about here?
we are
It
talking about Tom Brady, so I think cheat
Whoa,
code,
whoa,
go, all of
well,
that stuff does
again,
apply to him.
well, for him, yes, but again, but I'm talking about it's just those types of words or phrases, or whatever, are starting to they're just getting overused, and they're losing
Well, how's
meaning.
this? How about force multiplier?
Yeah,
You
there
like
you
that
go.
one?
There you go.
Yeah,
Why
because I
not?
mean,
Force
I,
multiplier.
I'll go back to 2011, and the Patriots had the 31st ranked defense, and they went 13-3. In 2011, the Green Bay Packers had the 32nd ranked defense, and they went 15-1. I wonder what the common denominator was for those two
Well, and
teams.
and I think that was very much Aaron Rodgers. And I say peak, not meaning like he's gone down since, but I think that was the very best of Aaron Rodgers, that
That was
2011
his best
season.
season.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make a case that his 2011 season is the greatest season ever by a quarterback. I mean, it's right there with Brady in '07, Brady in 2010, and pick a few other Brady years if you want,
Well,
a few
I'd
Peyton
throw
Manning years. And
Peyton Manning '04. I always
yeah,
said like
'04.
'04. I still have Brady's '07 as number one, because like some of those, like even like people who talk about the Chiefs and all that and how great like that Patriots team, and I brought it up several times. There was a stat where they had the fewest possessions in the entire league by a wide margin, but they also had scored the most points. But I mean, it's just
Hmm.
one of those stats that you just don't see, and it just spoke to how dominant and how great they were. Um, so I just so to me, I'd still have that '07 Brady up there, probably '04 Manning, and then right on its heels is 2011 Rogers. And again, I mean, a lot of this is based on what I've seen in my lifetime. I mean, I can't
Hmm.
speak to what I haven't seen. I can only get so much information by looking back and having not seen the actual game. But those 3 seasons stick out the most to me. People are like, oh, you're hating on Patrick. No, I mean, I'm not. I'm just those 3 seasons were just. I mean, what can you say about him? I mean, you're talking about like some of the most dominant ones. And like, again, I'm right there with 2010 Brady. I mean, people don't think about that as much. I mean, that kind of gets lost in the mix, but I mean, that season two was unbelievable. I just think those other three were special beyond what we normally see as special.
Yeah, and Brady in 2017 was great, and Manning in 2013 when he set the record for touchdown passes was, Denver was scoring 35, 40 points every single game. It just ended poorly when they lost in the Super Bowl 43-8. And the strange thing is, all of those great seasons didn't end in Super Bowls. We
Yeah.
know that um, point that the last time the regular season MVP won a Super Bowl was Kurt Warner in 1999. It's like
Hmm.
a curse when you win the MVP. So certainly my guy's been part of that with 4 MVPs and not able to even get to the Super Bowl in any of those years. But yeah, Brady obviously covered up a lot of sins that those teams had, especially defensively. I mean, heck, he had Julian Edelman playing cornerback at the end of the 2011 AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that shows you what the situation was. But Brady figured out a way to win those games and go on to Super Bowls.
Well, and look, I mean, that's something, no one's sitting here saying, "Oh, Mac Jones has to beat Tom Brady." I want to be clear on that. But he's got to have that, again, that factor that can, like you said, kind of negate some of the issues that you're going to see across, not just on defense, but across the board. I mean, and that's what a great quarterback does, because no team is perfect. Even the best teams in the league have issues. They have problems, and the biggest equalizer is the quarterback, or in some cases, the biggest. Again, you could have great talent all around you, but if you don't have a quarterback,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean bleep, because, well, you're not going to be successful with just some guy. So, um, very rare situations. And again, when we talk about quarterback wins and Super Bowls as quarterback stats and blah blah blah, people always, what do you think they go to, John? What's their defense? What's their go-to? Well, so and so won a Super Bowl. Can you guess?
It's always Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo.
Yeah, Trent
So,
Dilfer. Yeah.
yeah, the point is, you have to go to the most extreme example to try and prove you, which isn't a good strategy, by the way. I mean, if you're having to dig to the depths of the Super Bowl winning group to find your example, to try to prove me wrong that quarterback wins are meaningful and Super Bowl wins are meaningful to a quarterback, then you've lost your case. So, the example is always, oh, is Trent Dilfer better than Dan Marino? Well, you're talking about maybe the very worst quarterback to win a Super Bowl and the very best quarterback not to win a Super Bowl. Two
Hmm.
very opposite ends of the spectrum. Not a good way to try to argue your point, because everything else in the middle all makes sense. So to me, I look at this and I say, okay, well, Trent Dilfer, the 2000 Ravens you're talking about one of the 3, 4 best defenses of all time, not that season. We're talking about historic, not your, oh, this team is having a historic year. We hear that every season. No, I'm talking about real historic. I'm talking about top 5 all time in the history of the league. So, okay, you can win a Super Bowl in the year 2000, also, by the way, with Trent Dilfer as your quarterback. Fine. Okay. But you also need one of the 4 greatest defenses of all time. It's not going to happen, especially now, given the nature of football, because let's think about it. what quarterback or what team has won a Super Bowl in the last 20 years with inferior quarterback play? And before you answer that, the example that's going to come to people's mind is Peyton Manning. Well, that's also kind of a unique situation because, yeah, was Peyton Manning a absolute shell of himself during that playoff run? Absolutely. Denver did have a great defense, but again, it's still Peyton Manning. And I think he had enough cachet, so to speak, to overcome his deficiency. And look, at the end of the day, he didn't do anything in the important moments to hurt his team. He just didn't necessarily have a lot to do to win that game. You know what I'm saying? So that's the one example. Other than that, John, can you think of any other quarterback that's
No.
Brad Johnson maybe? But then again, you're talking about a very historically great Tampa defense, and
And Brett Johnson was a pretty good
yeah,
quarterback.
yeah,
And I
he
mean, I
was,
know,
he was pretty good. But again, you
yeah,
have to go all the way back to 2002. So it's a long time ago.
yeah. And I mean, Joe Flacco led Baltimore to a Super Bowl,
Yeah,
but he
but
was
he
phenomenal in
was.
that
I
postseason.
mean, exactly. So like he was absolutely phenomenal. So like he may have a mediocre quarterback career, but you can argue that whatever worked. Same with Nick Foles. I mean, everyone, oh, he was a backup quarterback. Yeah, but he had a really pretty good run. I don't want to say great. I mean, he had a pretty good run to the point where like this wasn't a guy that was just a passenger. Like he was kind of a driving force towards their, run to at the end of the season. But like for the most part, you need a really good to great quarterback to win a Super Bowl. I mean,
Oh yeah, I mean,
let's be honest. Let's be
I,
real.
I'm not sure why people are debating that unless they just like to hear themselves speak, and
Well,
it's pretty
it's
obvious.
it's because it's Brady fatigue. I mean, because again, I mean, what argument do you really have against Tom Brady if it was wildly accepted that wins are a quarterback stat? I mean, you don't
Right.
have any. You have none. So people have to convince themselves that, despite the quarterback being the most important position, despite the quarterback touching the ball the most, despite every team, every single year trying to find that quarterback, they're going to sit there with a straight face and say that quarterbacks aren't involved enough to get the win. And it's like, come on, guys. Like everything about the sport of football caters to the quarterback. Everything that we know and have seen in the history of this game has involved great quarterback play. Even before, even like when the game was, predominantly running, it was more about the quarterback because again, it's about numbers, it's about volume. The quarterback has the ball in his hands, and despite everything, game plan, this, that, the other, he's the one in the in the split second making those decisions, and those decisions ultimately impact the game the most, and especially in this day and age. So, to me, like I know we've 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 kind of gotten away from the topic at hand, and that is the evolution of Mac Jones, but. In reality, it's a discussion about the overall impact of quarterbacks because again, you're not going to win in this league without great quarterback play. There's just no two ways around it. You can't get lucky enough on defense. There's not a defense good enough out there to hold back all these great quarterbacks and great offenses. There just isn't. And the way the game is officiated, way the game is the rules are put in place, it's just not going to happen. So, um, to me, if Mac Jones, I'm going to somehow bring it back to what we're, originally talking about. If Mac Jones can elevate himself from just a guy to someone who can be an eraser, Arnold Schwarzenegger, remember that movie, Eraser?
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
I actually just watched it the other day. That's how I remembered it. It had popped up on one of the streaming services, and I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm laying in bed. I can watch this." So, if Mac Jones can be an eraser, if he can make up for the team shortcomings, which you look, like I said before, every team has shortcomings. Every team has issues that could be the absolute nail in their coffin when it comes to going for a Super Bowl. But if you have a great quarterback, you can put those on the back burner or you can overcome those far easier. So if Mac takes that next step, their wide receiver group goes from mediocre to great because all of a sudden you're looking at 1 through 4 and you're saying, wow, you can trust any one of those guys. And then you look at the tight ends and then you look at the running back. So, To me, this season for the Patriots is all about Mac Jones. I do I want to see them get a little bit quicker on defense? Absolutely. But if they're the exact same they were last year, I'm okay because I know they're going to be a better team because of Mac Jones, and they're going to win more because of Mac Jones. And when it comes down to the playoff time, then we'll cross that bridge if that becomes an issue. But right now, like I said, it's all about Mac. Mac this, Mac that, Mac, Mac, Mac. That's all it is. Patriot season comes down to Mac Jones.
Yeah, how he develops and how much he can get out of his guys, his receivers, his tight ends, the running game, etc. And I'm optimistic with him. I think he has a limited, I wouldn't say ceiling. I mean, I think he can be a really good quarterback, but it seems like he's all invested, right? I mean, this is a guy who loves playing the position, loves playing here, is going to put the time in, is going to work his butt off. So those are all the intangibles you look at.
Well, that's the thing, John, though. I don't know if he has a limited ceiling. I'm not saying his potential is through the roof, but like there's nothing that tells me that I think he's limited because, again, all the things that I like in a quarterback, he has now. You got to fine tune some of those things. But that to me gives you somewhat of a limitless potential because if you can master the things that you're already good at, you can improve, you can get a little bit stronger with your arm. You can get a little bit just you can fix those other things. Like you can't learn accuracy. You can't learn a quick decision making. And I think that's something that Mac already has. And if you can fine tune it, sure, that's only better for him. But so yeah, I don't know how I don't think his ceiling is right now limited. If anything, I feel like it's there's a lot of potential there. Now, again, we could watch him go through this season and at the end of the year say, yeah, he's probably limited in these areas because now we've seen 2 full seasons. We've seen where his improvement came, where it kind of plateaued, and then we can make, I think, a more accurate judgment at that point. But so to me, I don't know about what his potential is. I'm not going to call it low or moderate or whatever, because again, I mean, you could have said the same thing about Tom Brady after year one. Oh, the ceiling's kind of, obviously winning the Super Bowl helps, but maybe he doesn't. I mean, obviously now we know what his ceiling is. It's whatever the hell he wants it to be. So again, I'm not saying Mac is going to be that, but I do see again, based on what we saw last year, that's all I can base it on, really. And anyone who's saying otherwise and saying that that's the limit, that's the most we're ever going to get at, that they're just guessing. I mean, let's be honest, they're just guessing. And we saw that earlier this offseason where, analysts came out saying, oh, nope, that's it. Mac Jones isn't going to get any better. That's dumb. Like, no one knows that. Like, if you're saying that, you're just saying that to get a reaction. Now, you can comment on things where he needs to get better. Sure. You can talk. There's certainly things like that. I mean, again, I think that's any young quarterback's. You go through and you check, okay, this is what he does well. This is what he does not. This is where he can improve. This is where, okay, if you're not accurate, John, you're probably not going to get much more accurate. I mean, it is what it is. All right. You just can't. I mean, Josh Allen, maybe that's an exception. But again, you can maybe trace that directly to the arrival of Stephon Diggs. So who knows? I still think Josh Allen might be an exception with that because he was very inaccurate early on. But what can you think of any quarterback, John, that was so poor, had such poor accuracy, and then all of a sudden became really good?
No, normally that's something you kind of have or you don't. I mean, I think Josh Allen probably had some issues with mechanics that they cleaned up, and that will lead to better accuracy. So I think that's what fitted with him. And I think they also tried to slow the game down a little bit for him. He seemed to always be in a mode of rushing, which is going to kind of, impact where your feet are or, if you're maybe throwing to the wrong guy or anything like that. So I think they slowed the game down for him and that helped his accuracy. But yeah, that's generally something that, this guy is accurate, and we see that Mac Jones is very accurate, and that's going to continue on. And just he has to build from there and understanding the offense, making the right decisions, and just being more comfortable with his players. And I think we'll see all of that in year 2.
Yep. We will indeed, or at least I'm hoping so. So, unfortunately, we had some technical hiccups, so we weren't able to get Jim on here. But definitely stay tuned over at Full Press NHL on Twitter, and of course over at fullpresshockey.com as free agency starts in just about. Well, it's 9 o'clock now. As well, we just gave away that we're not technically live right now, but technically, free agency starts in just a few hours. So be sure to go over to fullpresshockey.com, check that out. And of course, check out Full Press NHL on Twitter for all your updates to free agency and all your breaking news. And of course, the latest rumors, which we just published not too long ago. So check it out, follow us. And of course, we will talk to you actually probably next week, starting on Monday. So have a great weekend, everyone. Be safe, and we will talk to you